Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today I'm really excited to be unboxing Free Radicals from Wizkids. This is a game for 2 to 5 players that plays in 45 to 90 minutes. The reason I'm so excited about it is I got a chance to look at this at Gen Con, and it is a very asymmetrical game. There are 10 factions in the game and they play very differently. That's something I'm interested in, so let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside. So like I said, I really like asymmetrical games. One of my favorites of all time is Fast from later games. And if you've ever played that, you know it is very asymmetrical. You're essentially playing 5 different games. This one has 10 different factions, and every faction plays the game differently. Although there is a shared central board, you are essentially trying to score points. So the score mechanic is the same for each player. Let's go ahead and take a look at our rulebook here. So a little bit of story behind the game itself. Essentially, there are these alien monoliths that have come along and started spewing out all this advanced information and technology, and you are playing as one of the 10 factions. So they show 5 different colors here, but each board is double-sided, so there's a different faction on each side. So 10 different factions that are all trying to compete to learn the most from these alien artifacts that they are provided. So you see here, the components are broken down into the different colors, which again are 2 different factions. So you have the adventurers here and their components, couriers have their own components, and so on. You have, like, the farmers down here have these little domino tiles that they use. And then the hoteliers here are basically playing a game of Tetris 4 times at the same time. It's kind of interesting, but we'll see that when we get to player boards. General setup here. Here's kind of the shared board, which is a little busy from what it looks like. Hopefully it's not quite as busy when we get it out of the box, but basically it's tracking victory points, and also there are these buildings that you can go visit that give you special things. An explanation of all 10 of the factions you can see here. So you got paladins down here and entertainers, and really a wide gamut of different types of groups. You'll probably notice that it's got kind of a cyberpunk, futuristic feeling to it. Our basic rules. Now obviously the game's going to change pretty substantially based off of who you're playing. So this is kind of explaining how to take those shared actions on that main board, and then when we get to the actual factions, they have faction sheets which kind of go into more depth in what your character does. The different buildings that you can go to. Each building also has a special power depending on what faction you are. So if you're playing the underground faction and you go to the cyber cafe, you can do this action, which is the same action that everybody else can do, but you can also do this special action because you are that faction. So building, or they call it awakening buildings of your faction. If you're the underground, you kind of want to awaken the cyber cafe. But at the same time, if you awaken a different building, let's say you're playing with somebody who's playing the hoteliers, and you awaken the casino, when they go to the casino, you're going to get points because you awakened it. So there's also a benefit to awakening other buildings to get those sort of passive points. And then the knowledge track down here, it's kind of like a set collection type thing. You can increase your knowledge in the different colors, and you can also gain influence in the different faction colors. And those will score you points as well. And then of course a nice little reference on the back. Hopefully they have little cheat sheets of this for the players. Let's go ahead and get into the rest of the box, which will start with the different faction sheets. Alright, so let's start with the farmers here, or the red faction, which actually has 2, the farmers and the executives. The farmers are playing these little domino tiles out into their board, and these are essentially plants that they are farming. You will have a player board as well in here, and that will actually explain this turn sequence that you can see here. But each faction has a slightly different turn sequence. So for the farmers, the first thing you do is you check to see if you have prestige. You want prestige because it's kind of like passive victory points. Then you take farm actions, which are these 3 actions on the side of this board, which we'll see closer when we actually pull out the board. You can then plant one of the crop dominoes. when you plant them, you want to match them up like a basic domino game. You want these green ovals, I don't know exactly what they are, to be next to each other, because when you activate them, you activate all of them that are connected. So if you have 2 of these green ovals next to each other, when you activate that tile that you just put down, instead of just getting 1 of that bonus, you're going to get 2. You can kind of see over here that the green gives you, I think that's a data card. So instead of drawing 1 data card, because it's next to another green one, you draw 2. Basic domino placement rules there. Then you do crop actions, which is what I just explained, and then you refill any empty slot here on your track board. They also explain the 3 farm actions, which are on the left of the board. Building is awakening a building. Crystallize is putting crystals on one of your specific spots, so not on a domino, but one of the 2 spots on a domino. And then trade lets you do a handful of things. There's also a little strategy tip down here for the farmers. And then the backside is more explanation of what they do. So here we go, explanation. So those were soybeans, and that does let you draw data cards. Fungi gains you favor, rice gives you credit, spice gives you resources, and so on. Again, whenever you activate them, if you have multiple lined up, you're going to get that bonus multiple times. So they're showing that they activated this tile, which has a rice and a fungi on it, but because the rice is connected to 3 other rice, you're not just going to get 1 credit, you're going to get 4. And because the fungi is connected to another fungi, you're going to get 2 favors of any color instead of just 1. Again, factions are all competing to score the most points. Points essentially come from these favor tokens. You can earn points throughout the course of the game, such as by awakening buildings will usually give you points. And then also knowledge. Knowledge is also points at the end of the game, as well as additional resources. So if you have extra cards, it's worth points, but not a ton. So that's farmers. They're playing like a domino game. The executives here, let's see what they're doing. So the executives, it looks like they're manipulating a Mancala faction here. So again, their turn sequence, always check for prestige. I assume everybody's going to do that. Then they get to assign assets. Pick up all the assets on one company, distribute the assets on companies clockwise around your board, placing 1 on each company you go. Then you check to see if you've completed a project tile. You choose to either do the action noted on the board or do the assets actions in any order. And then you can start a project and then gain knowledge. So again, kind of if you don't know a lot about board games, you're trying to learn a lot of mechanics, is probably a good game for you, because this is going to teach you how Mancala works, which is basically where you're moving resources around and then activating an area with those resources for a certain amount of power based off of how many resources you have there. And then again, more about how they play on the second page. Then we have the yellow faction, which is the Artisans and the Underground. I know the Underground is essentially a deck builder. So they have all these different cards in an 18 card deck, and every turn they get 5 cards drawn randomly from their deck, and those determine what actions they can take. You see they got a board here of all these different people, so like the leader is the first token, and all of those people do a different thing. So if they activated, what's an easy one? They activated the runner here, it looks like they'd get 2 money. If they activate this guy down here, looks like he's called the activist, they get to upgrade a character. And what that does is they can move one of these tiles over, and now the runner, when they activate them, can gain 2 money, or they can do this second action. But that's essentially how they work, moving their people forward. And you can see their turn sequence here, also some strategy on how they work, and then the back page explains what all of the different cards in their deck are, and I believe there's 2 of each in the deck. But you can also manipulate their deck while you're playing. The Artisans are doing artisan actions by playing data cards from their hand onto their board, so it looks like they're making things, which makes sense for artisans. Exchange a matching pair of data cards on your board for a hard light construct, and at the end draw 3 data cards from the deck. So again, they are clearly building things. We have the merchants here. The merchants are playing a resource gathering and conversion game, you know, very much what you would expect from merchants. So they can move a merchant to a market, that becomes the active market, then they activate a stall you have at the active market, and do up to 3 merchant actions by placing action cubes, with their merchant actions being pretty vast, depending on where they are, what market they're at. So then we have the hoteliers. So again, these are the guys who are playing Tetris. They have these 4 buildings that they're trying to build, and they're going to get these different pieces that they can put out onto one of the 4 different areas. You can see they're going to have these little pieces here. And other than that, I mean, if you don't know how to play Tetris, you should probably look that up, but that's pretty straightforward. They're playing Tetris, but again, that's pretty cool. The blue faction has the couriers here. I believe the couriers are basic point-to-point movement, so they can move their drones and activate 3 districts that they land on. Choose 2 districts, you activate and perform a courier action on each of them, then restack your drones on the remaining district. And then optional, you may discard a data card matching the district your stack occupies to collect 1 goods token of your choice. So again, you're moving these drones around to the different areas and then gaining actions for those areas, or gaining resources for those areas. And then the activated districts, they tell you what you get: gain 2 resources, gain 2 credits, and so on. The entertainers are the other blue faction. The entertainers are using a forecaster. It's interesting. So they also have a deck of cards like the underground, but they can also predict if they have the prestige token. The prestige token, like I said, is passive points. You get it for having the most prestige, essentially. So that's always something you're going to be competing for. But also the entertainers are trying to guess if they're going to have it next turn. And if they were correct, they score a point per opposing player. Then they're going to activate 4 of their entertainers. Again, they're going to have 5 like the underground, but they're only activating 4. 5th entertainer goes on one of your stages. And then you will earn a bonus if your stage is filled with 3 entertainers that are from the same agency, and then you draw back up to 5 entertainers. So you're trying to basically put on shows to score points with your different entertainers. The adventurers. So the adventurers use action point and map exploration mechanics. They are actually trying to get through this area here, and they have different characters to do it. So they've got cleric, rogue, druid, mage, and fighter. So spend your available action points to do adventurer actions, then swap your current recon with an adventurer of your choice from the map. And then if any adventurer other than the fighter is on recon, reveal 2 new map tiles, place 1 recon cube on each reveal tile, and then reset your AP track. So you're basically putting out these tiles being different rooms or whatever that your group is going through, and clearly you're going to be getting bonuses for doing those certain things. You can collect, reveal, defend, and battle while you're out there. And then the paladins. Paladins are action programming. So move your action cube 1 space to the right on your action track. Note whether this is the place turn or remove turn. Then you place paladin tokens on the action space to do paladin actions, or you remove all paladin tokens. And then if your action cube is one of the first 4 remove squares, then you may promote 1 squire to a knight. So that's interesting. It's a 2-turn selection mechanism. So again, basic action programming, where you're trying to, you have 1 turn where you're doing things, and then 1 turn where you're essentially recovering your people. So here we have our player boards. And again, they are double-sided, so when you're playing the red faction, you're only going to have 1 red faction. You can't have somebody playing the farmers and then also somebody playing the executives. But you can see here, they have a very nice guide along the left here that tells you exactly what your particular faction does on their turn. That's clearly very helpful when you have a game like this where everybody's playing slightly differently. Here we have the Artisans, as well as the Underground, the Hoteliers, and Merchants, Couriers and Entertainers, and then the Adventurers and the Paladins. Okay, then we have our main board here. So the main board has a couple things on it. One, this is just a score track, essentially. These are different buildings that you can go to, you can go visit, and again, they give you certain things. If you are a particular faction, you get a bonus. And then up here, you have basically what's a market. So you're gonna have cards laid out here that players can gain when they gain data cards. So these are the data cards that we'll see in a minute. And on the left here, you have knowledge. So more knowledge is better. Not only does it give you points for getting to a certain point on the knowledge track, but there are also points at the end of the game. And regardless of how many players you're playing with or what factions they're playing, you're always going to play with every faction in the game because you can still earn favor and you can still increase the knowledge of a faction that's not in the game. So if you're playing a 2-player game and somebody's playing merchants, which are green, and paladins, which are purple, you're still going to have the rest of the factions involved in the game because you can gain favor from those other factions. So these are just cubes representing favor, and these are just little plastic colored cubes, and these will be used for a couple different things. Obviously you're going to track your score with them, so if you're playing the farmers, you know, you'll have a cube over here that's going to track as your score goes up and down. These locations as well, so when you go to a location, you're just activating it for the ability. But if you awaken it, you're actually going to put one of your cubes down on it. So if I'm playing as the farmers and I awaken the grant office here, I'm going to put a cube there. Now when anybody else goes to that location, I'm going to gain a favor cube from them. So if yellow goes to that location, in addition to whatever else they have to do to go there, they're also going to have to put a favor cube down, and I'm going to get that favor cube, so it's going to go to red. And again, those are points at the end of the game. But I'm also going to score this bonus for being there, which is 1 credit. You can actually awaken each building twice. That's why they have 2 little circles on them, and I could awaken this building both times if I wanted to. Now, if yellow were to go to this location, they have to put down 2 favor cubes, which I, as a red player, am going to gain, and I'm also going to gain this bonus twice. So again, that is how you gain additional resources for building buildings that you don't necessarily want, as long as somebody else is using them. And then you have the favor here. The favor just goes up by faction, so this isn't necessarily, if I'm playing the farmers, this isn't necessarily my cube, this is just the red faction's cube, and actually other people can improve this. Maybe they want the points for doing it, right? So they would improve it for me. We've got our general resources here, so there are, I believe, 3 in the game. This is titanium, just little plastic pieces there. This is, I believe, coal. And then I do not remember at all what this one is. Probably some type of energy or something, but they're all the same shape, just different colors. And then we have these gems here. These are for the farmers. Again, the farmers can put these little crystallized gems on a specific crop, and it basically powers that crop up, makes it more valuable for them. All right, what else do we have in here? We have some standees. There's a couple things that go on standees, like the adventurer party goes on standees. Let's see if there's a whole bunch of punchboard underneath it. Let's go through our cards real quick. So a couple different factions uses cards. Obviously very easy to see who they belong to. This is clearly the yellow faction, the underground faction. And again, these are all their different members, their gang, I guess you would call it, because they are the underground after all. These are, looks like random select cards. Yeah, looks like just a random select card. I think this is the determine who starts, maybe? I'm quite certain. Paladins obviously have their own cards. Little objectives they're trying to complete there. These are the merchants. Oh no, I'm sorry, the hoteliers. And they have all their little Tetris style cards. And they should have cardboard pieces to match all these. And then finally, the entertainers, and at the back here, the couriers. So the entertainers have all their entertainers that they're trying to get on the stage. They can either use them for their bonuses here, or the last one they don't use go to the stage. And then the couriers have cards as well. They're pick up and deliver basically. So they're trying to deliver certain things to different districts, as you can see on the cards. Our other deck of cards here are our data cards, and these are the different buildings. So these are all data cards, different buildings in the game. So some of the different factions actually use these cards. Artificers use these cards, for instance, to build things. Farmers can trade in these cards for money. Most factions, I believe, can use these cards in different ways than to actually build the buildings. Because one of the things is you cannot build a building unless it has your symbol on it. So this building here is the company spire. You can't build it unless you are the yellow or the purple faction, or you have some way around that, because that's what these icons mean. At the bottom here, it just tells you what it takes to build it. So 2 coal and 1, whatever that, I guess it's helium, the yellow one. And then it's going to give you these things, which includes 5 points. And this is, I believe, the icon for putting down one of your favorite tokens. So that's how you build these. And then again, once they're activated, you'll earn sort of a residual income for being a builder. And there's several cards of each building, each with different icons on them. All right, and then we got our punch board. Quite a bit of it. So, credits. Here are all our little tokens for the hoteliers. So our little Tetris pieces that we can put out. Got another sheet of those. More credits. We've got our little underground characters. They're little gang members. They have these their own little tokens, because remember, they slide across that board as they upgrade. Crops for the farmers. Here's a little prestige token. If you have the most prestige, you get this token. It actually tells you on the back, I think. Yeah, it tells you on the back what you get if you have this at the start of your turn. Remember, everybody checks to see if they have this, because this is something you're actively trying to get every turn. Drones for our courier. Well, there's one of our characters. I believe that's the fighter for the adventurer. Just a whole bunch of pieces for different characters. The first 2 boards were kind of all hoteliers, but now it's kind of wherever they can fit them. I believe these are for the adventurer as well. More pieces here. Another adventurer character down here. Here's our paladin character. Goods for the merchant. Again, just wherever they could fit pieces, essentially, is where they put them on these boards. And then one last board, a little bit of everything, pretty much. And that's it. That's everything you get in a copy of Free Radicals from Wizkids.